Everybody has been talking about the Intel issue, and if you've been following the tech community, definitely know what I'm talking about. But just in case, let me recap it for you. Basically, some Intel CPUs are failing due to overvoltage, causing crashes and various issues. Now, that is true. However, it is not as widespread as you may think, and it is actually a lot more common in certain CPUs, one kind specifically. Let's get straight into it. So welcome back at Undervolting PSUs, and I was actually debating if I should be making this video for a while, because a big disclaimer I want to say just at the beginning is if you have one of these CPUs and you have been running them right and you bought them brand new and you haven't had issues so far, you don't have to panic. So the reason why I'm making this video is just because I think you should not be buying these CPUs used if you don't know what they've been through. And now the CPUs I'm talking about is 13th gen i9s, and these are the most affected CPUs. Now, I know this firsthand, unfortunately, because a few friends and clients of mine have had a lot of issues with these i9, and I'm talking big issues in PCs which will run pretty much properly, but again, some are really defective and some are just not run properly. Now, the i9 3900K and the i9 3900KF are both subject to this kind of thing, unfortunately. And the reason is, well, they are the highest running clockwise CPUs and the one with the highest voltage, and that also draw the most power and current flowing through them. I've had an instance of a 13th gen i9 which was run perfectly right. I'm talking 360mm all-in-one cooler in a very well ventilated system. However, it still failed. So some are genuinely defective. I want to expand on this and actually talk about the issue overall. I think in general, the reason why people are having their CPUs fail is they are setting them up incorrectly. But I do not fault the end user for this, because it is tricky to set the CPUs up properly. You need good cooling and you need to put your hands into the BIOS and actually see what you should do. It's not as simple as just building the PC, turning it on and running it. An easy fix is to undervolt your CPUs. Now, I made a dedicated video on the actual fix for this issue if your CPU is crashing, so I recommend you go check that one out. However, if your CPU is too far gone, it is very difficult to bring it back, even with that video. Or in general, if you have been following my channel for a while, if you followed my undervolting tutorials, you're probably out of danger, because by undervolting them, you run less current, lower voltage automatically. That has been the silent fix for a while, which is nice. And I've also done it to all the PCs I've built pretty much, even just a little bit. So they're all fine so far, thankfully. But in general, the main issue is that people think that they can buy a K series i7 or i9 and just run it with subpar cooling in a not so well ventilated case that maybe they bought because they saw it on Instagram and they just thought it looked cool. And the thing is, if you're building a K system, a K series system or a KF, historically, they have always been enthusiast chips, running hot. You would need aftermarket coolers, and you needed to set them up properly. But nowadays, people think they can just slot them in, do nothing, and just play. And the problem is also with how the motherboards are set. So since reviewers test out the motherboards at basically stock speeds, the stock option in the motherboard, the default option, is very aggressive. They have multi-core enhancement turned on, they have advanced turbo turned on, they have an aggressive power limit, and that's what the latest microcode fixes. Basically, the default BIOS is a lot less aggressive, and that's basically the fix. That and lower voltage peak is what was damaging the CPU, pretty much. If you buy like a brand new 14th gen CPU, you can rest assured, in my opinion, I do recommend you buy Intel. I don't recommend you stay away from them. I recommend at the moment, unfortunately, you stay away from used 13th gen. You have to. And even like used Intel CPUs in general, I would be careful, especially ones that draw a lot of power, but especially the i9s. I would really watch out, because of course, like if you ask the seller, they shouldn't, but they are always gonna tell you like, no, this CPU didn't run much, or yes, I've run it with a very good cooling system, undervolted, but it's rarely the truth. Especially if you're a PC flipper watching this. I know a lot of you guys watch my channel. I don't recommend you get an i9 to flip, even though they're very cheap, because if you sell the PC and the PC has issues, you might get complaints, and it's like really annoying. And I know how tight the margins are in PC flipping. I don't think it's worth the hassle to have a possibly faulty CPU. I've seen way too many go. And even for PC flippers, even if you set the CPU right, you don't know what the CPU has been through before, so you're risking it. Of course, like if you buy the CPU and if it's running right, and if you set it right, you know, you have a pretty good chance of the CPU still managing to do well. But since you don't know what it has been through before, it's still a risk, and I'm not sure I would take it. Trying to close up on a positive side, the thing is, the actual faulty CPU so far, in my experience, has been the 13th Gen i9. And all the other CPUs, I haven't seen as much of a failure rate. I've never seen a 13700K fail on me. I've never had a 14900K or KS fail on me. The KS especially seems to be better being the lower voltage, better running. And a few clients of mine who could afford it, who had faulty i9s, 13th gen, they just bought a 14900 KS. And the old one, they tried to RMA, maybe to sell it once it was fixed, of course, after the RMA, or they just took the loss and they switched to 1400 KS, and they have been running great so far. The KS, the much better CPU. And the thing is, people in the PC building industry, they have always been making mistakes, of course, especially if you're a beginner. Like you build a PC, you have your own PC, you may have 1,000 problems. You may have faulty RAM, you may install the drivers wrong, corrupt your Windows installation. So you may have your PC crash, right? But the problem is nowadays, if you Google like Intel CPU crash, the problem with the faulty thing will pop up. So a lot of people think they have faulty CPUs, but they don't. They just have other issues like RAM issues, again, operating system issues. I find, in my professional experience, that really not that many CPUs are faulty, like actually faulty, except for 13th Gen i9s, which a lot of are faulty, and you should be very careful when buying them used. But if you have one, and if it has been running fine, it's probably fine. But I would still undervolt it if you haven't already, and make sure you have adequate cooling. So this is kind of it. So I would say the whole Intel situation is not as bad as it seems, and you should definitely not be scared of buying brand new CPUs from Intel. But watch out for the used ones, I think. And also let me know your experience down below if you've seen like a high failure rate on another SKU. I'm especially interested if you're like a PC flipper or like if you have a shop, let me know down below. And if you found the video interesting, maybe drop a like and subscribe to the channel to support me. And I hope to see you guys again in a more positive video. Bye bye.